Hello everyone, I am here again with the topic hybridization. In our first video regarding hybridization, the basics of this theory, why this theory was required, how atomic orbitals undergo hybridization, all these things were discussed. And there at the end, I said that in the next video we will be coming with the other hybridizations, that was sp3d, sp3d2 and sp3d3. So today in this video we will basically concentrate on this and some other related things which often comes in your exam, that will be also discussed. So let us start. First we will discuss the hybridization, that is sp3d. So we are discussing sp3d hybridization. So for this we are taking an example of molecule, a very well-known molecule, PCl5, phosphorus pentachloride. So the atomic number of phosphorus is 15, right? And it is a group 15 molecule. So the electronic configuration of the central phosphorus atom will be just like nitrogen, it is below the nitrogen. So if I write the valence shell of phosphorus, it is simply 3s2 3p3. So how will it look? It will look like this: 3s, then we have this 3p, applying Hund's principle, all will be unpaired, but we have in n equals to 3 the 3d orbital, the 3d. So 5d orbitals, they are vacant but they are there, and you can see in the valence shell here we have only 3 unpaired electrons. For the phosphorus we have only 3 unpaired electrons, but from this formula PCl5 it is clear that the phosphorus is bonded with 5 chlorine, that means the covalence is 5. So from this ground state electronic configuration we cannot explain the pentavalency of phosphorus. So we take the excited state electronic configuration, that means one of the 3s electron will be promoted to this 3d orbital. So in the excited state the electronic configuration will look like this: one of the electron is promoted to 3d. And now all these 5 orbitals will undergo hybridization. So in this hybridization, one s orbital is participating, 3 p orbitals are participating, and 1 d orbital is participating. So the name is sp3d. And as we know, each of the hybridization is associated with a particular geometry. Like in the previous video we said for sp3 it is tetrahedral, then sp2 trigonal planar, and then it was sp that was linear. Similarly sp3d is also associated with a particular with a particular geometry, and that is very important: trigonal bipyramidal. Trigonal bipyramidal. Okay, so how this molecule PCl5 looks, I am trying to show you with a model the molecule PCl5. So this is your PCl5 molecule. Okay, I am saying it is trigonal bipyramidal. So all these 5 are chlorine, this black, yellow, ash color, red, green, and it is the central phosphorus, the purple colored one. Okay, so trigonal bipyramidal. If you add this red, yellow and green, you will get a triangle, a planar triangle, right? And then with respect to this trigonal plane, there are 2 perpendicular bonds. This is one chlorine, this is one chlorine. So if I want to draw this molecule, then how will it look? It looks like this. First I am drawing the trigonal plane. So suppose this is the trigonal plane, right? And at the center of this trigonal plane there is phosphorus. So I am writing phosphorus here at the center. and the 3 chlorines are at the 3 vertices of that triangle, right? So I am putting the 3 chlorine atoms at the 3 vertices like this, and then we have 2 more chlorines which are perpendicular to this plane, this trigonal plane, right? So it looks like this. So this is your trigonal bipyramidal. Now why this geometry is called trigonal bipyramidal? This is your trigonal plane. Now if you off this black one, if you take only this one, so this is the trigonal plane, and there is one more atom. So if you add these lines, it will be a pyramid. If you add these 3 lines like this, it will be a pyramid. Similarly, if you off this ash colored atoms, you take the black one, and if you add these 3, it is again a pyramid. So on both of the sides of this trigonal plane there are 2 pyramids, so it is trigonal bipyramidal, a trigonal basal plane, and on either side of this there are pyramids. So the geometry is known as trigonal bipyramidal. Now the problem is, when we discussed methane, all those CH bonds were exactly identical in terms of bond energy and bond length, and that's why we defined hybridization as a process where the atomic orbitals are mixed to give you equal number of energetically equivalent hybrid orbitals. Now the problem is, experimentally when PCl5 was examined, what we observed that there are 2 types of bond energy and bond length, which means all the 5 PCl bonds are not energetically equivalent. And how can we explain this? So here we say the line that sp3d hybridization is the only hybridization which gives energetically non-equivalent hybrid orbitals. Okay, now to explain this, we can think that sp3d hybridization, it is a combination of 2 different hybridization. sp3d hybridization, it is a combination of 2 different hybridization. And what are those 2 different hybridizations? One is sp2 and another is pd hybridization. So if you add sp2 and pd, then the name comes sp3d. Okay, now in this sp2, the 3 orbitals involved are s, px and py. So when it is sp2 hybridization, that means this part will give a trigonal planar part, and what will be that plane of that trigonal planar part? The orbitals, p orbitals participating are px and py. So that trigonal plane will be nothing but the xy plane. Since px and py, if you take px and pz, then the trigonal plane will be xz plane. If you take py and pz, the trigonal plane will be the yz plane, just like this. If you draw the 3 axes x, y, z, then this is your xy plane, this plane, and this will be the xz plane, and this will be the yz plane. So if you are taking px and py, that means the trigonal planar part will be the xy plane. Similarly, px, pz gives you the xz plane, y and z gives you the yz plane. So here I have taken px and py, that means the plane defined by this sp2 hybridization will be the xy plane. Now remaining is the pz orbital. So how the pz orbital is oriented in this Cartesian axis? It is along the z axis, right? So we need a d orbital which has its probability, its lobes expanded along z axis. Only then it will do a good overlapping with the pz orbital to give you a good hybrid orbital, right? So which d orbital has its lobe directed along z axis? The dz square. So in this PD part, the two orbitals participating are pz and dz square, and hence the probability of finding the electron, that is the lobes of this PD hybrid part, will be located or will be oriented along the z axis. Now think of this molecule again. This was our molecule. So this trigonal plane, this is the xy plane defined by this sp2 part. So if this is the xy plane, then what will be the direction of z axis? Perpendicular to the xy plane. If this is the xy plane, the z axis is just perpendicular to that xy plane. This is the z axis perpendicular, and that PD hybrid orbitals are oriented along the z axis. That means two of these chlorine are actually overlapping with the PD hybrid orbitals to give these two bonds which are perpendicular to the xy plane, and three chlorines are overlapping with sp2 hybrid orbitals in this xy plane, right? So now it is clear that these two PCl bond are because of the overlap of the valence orbital, one of the 3p orbital of chlorine containing the unpaired electron, with a PD hybrid orbital of phosphorus, and resulting these two blue PCl bond, whereas these three red PCl bonds, how they are obtained? Because of overlap by one of the 3p orbital of chlorine, that is containing the unpaired electron of chlorine, and sp2 hybrid orbital of phosphorus. If you take the electronic configuration of chlorine, atomic number 17, then it is 3s2 3p5, right, the valence shell. So this one is the 3s and then 3p. So it has the unpaired electron in one of its 3p orbital. You can take this one in either 3px or 3py or 3pz. That is up to your choice. But here, as this one is oriented along z axis, the PD orbitals pz and dz square, that's why purposefully we have taken this as the pz orbital. Okay, pz orbital containing the unpaired electron. So now it is clear that these two blue PCl bonds, how are they resulting? They are resulting because of PD hybrid orbital of phosphorus overlapping with 3pz of chlorine, whereas these three red PCl bonds, how are they obtained? They are obtained because of overlap between sp2 hybrid orbital of phosphorus and 3pz of chlorine. So you can see the constituting orbitals of the covalent bonds are different, and that's why their bond energy as well as their bond lengths are also different. So in this way we can explain the experimental observation that in the PCl5 molecule, the 5 PCl bonds are not energetically equivalent. Two of the bonds are of one type because of PD and 3pz, and three of the other bonds are one type in terms of bond energy and bond length. These three chlorines situated at the three vertices of the trigonal plane, they are known as equatorial chlorine. These are known as equatorial position, EQ, equatorial position, and these three PCl bonds are known as equatorial bond, equatorial bond. And these two PCl, blue PCl bonds which are directed along the z axis, they are known as axial chlorine, and these two PCl bonds are known as axial bonds. Now the extent of overlap with the 3pz of chlorine, that is better with sp2 compared to PD, and that's why the equatorial PCl bond, if you compare the bond strength, then the equatorial PCl bond is stronger than the axial PCl bond. Okay, this is the equatorial and this is the axial. So equatorial PCl bonds are always stronger than the axial PCl bond, and if you compare the bond length, it will be just reverse, because we know bond length and bond strength are inversely related. So if it is bond length, then PCl axial will be greater than PCl equatorial, and if it is bond strength, then PCl equatorial will be greater than PCl axial. Later in advanced theory, we will also discuss one thing known as fluxional molecule. Okay, for now we are skipping this because it is an advanced theory. We will discuss this theory, fluxional molecule or fluxional behavior of a molecule, where we will show that if a molecule contains both axial and equatorial bonds, they can interchange. A moment you are taking a snapshot, you see, okay, these two chlorines are axial, other three are equatorial. In the second moment, when you take another snapshot, you will see the equatorial has become axial, the axial has become equatorial. This behavior is known as fluxional molecule. We will discuss it later. So our next hybridization is sp3d2. sp3d2. And to explain this hybridization, we are taking the example of sulfur hexafluoride, SF6. So take the valence shell of S, sulfur, it is 3s2 3p4. So in the ground state, it will look like this, 3s having the paired electron, and in 3p, one is paired, other two are single, and 3d is vacant. 5 vacant, 3d. So clearly from this configuration we cannot explain the hexa covalency of sulfur. So we need excited state, we need 6 unpaired electrons, and here one of these 3s electron is promoted to 3d, and one of this 3p electron from the paired electron is also promoted to 3d. So in the excited state, the electronic configuration becomes like this. And now all these 6 orbitals will undergo hybridization. So in this hybridization, one s orbital is participating, 3 p orbitals are participating, and 2 d orbitals are participating. So the name is sp3d2. Now this hybridization, it gives you energetically equivalent hybrid orbitals. Okay, we now have 6 hybrid orbitals, each containing 1 electron, responsible for the covalency. Okay, now what will be the geometry of sp3d2? It is octahedral. Okay, this geometry or the name is very funny. You know why? This geometry is known as octahedral. Okay, SF6 molecule looks like this. All these 6 are fluorine, and the central yellow atom is the sulfur. So I am drawing it. First I will draw the square plane. This is the square plane. At the middle there is the sulfur. There is the sulfur, and then we have 6 fluorine like this. At the 4 vertices of the square plane there are 4 fluorine, and then there are 2 perpendicular fluorine like this. So here again you may get confused that these 2 fluorines are axial and these 4 fluorines are equatorial, because just now you have seen axial and equatorial for sp3d, so it also look like this, and you may call it square bipyramidal, right? Just like trigonal bipyramidal, you have a square plane here and 2 perpendicular. But the problem is, in octahedral geometry, all these 6 positions are equivalent. You cannot distinguish them as axial or equatorial. Why? Just watch it very carefully. If you are taking this one as the square plane, then these two are the perpendicular. So you term this red ash colored atom, blue atom and black atom as the equatorial, and this purple and this green as axial, right? Now just imagine if I join these four atoms, purple, red, green, blue, that is also a square plane, and in that case this ash colored atom and this black atom becomes perpendicular to this square plane. So in that case these four will be the equatorial, these two will be the axial. Again you can add these four also, purple, black, green, ash color, that will also give you a square plane, and then this red and blue will become perpendicular like the axial. So it is just your angle of view which actually confuse you that two of them are axial, remaining four equatorial. See, I am not breaking the bond, but I can take any of the four as the axial, right? Now these four are the axial, here these four are equatorial in the square plane. So actually all these six positions are exactly equivalent. There is no distinguish as axial or equatorial in octahedral geometry. This is one thing you must know. Now another funny thing about this octahedral geometry is there are six vertices, right? You can see there are six vertices. So first get it clear that there is no axial or equatorial thing in octahedral geometry. All these six positions are equivalent, unlike trigonal bipyramidal. Another thing is, in this octahedral geometry you can see there are six vertices, but the name is octahedral. If you see the geometry tetrahedron or tetrahedral, it looks like this, right? So how many vertices are there? 4. So it is known as tetrahedron. So here we have 6 vertices. So the name should be hexahedron, but it is called octahedral. Why? So here by the word octa, that is denoting 8, this 8 is not the number of vertices. Then what is denoted by this word octa? Just look at the structure carefully. If I add this green, blue and ash colored atoms, these three, I will get a trigonal plane, right? Similarly, if I add this green, blue and black, another trigonal plane. Then I add this green, red and black, another trigonal plane. And then this green, red and ash color, another trigonal plane. So how many trigonal plane here? Total 4, right? Just like that, in the below also we have 4 such trigonal planes. So 4 plus 4, how many trigonal planes are there? 8. That's why the name is octahedron. Here octahedron does not essentially means there are 8 vertices. No, it is not the number of vertices. Here it is number of trigonal planes. And that's why it is known as octahedron, because there are 8 such trigonal planes. Okay. Now the question which arises that like sp3d, I said it is the dz square orbital that participate. In sp3d hybridization, I have shown you it is the dz square. You cannot arbitrarily take any of the z square orbital, any of the d orbital to participate in sp3d hybridization. Just like that, in sp3d2 hybridization also, you cannot take any of the 2 d orbitals. They are particular. What are those 2 d orbitals? One is dx square minus y square, another is dz square. Now how can we explain it? Just see the orientation of the 5 d orbitals in 3-dimensional space. If I take dxy, it looks like this, right? Similarly, dyz and dxz, just you change these two axes, xy, xz and yz, you will get these 3 orbitals. What is the common things of these 3 d orbitals? The lobes, the probability of finding the electron that is oriented in between the axes, right? They are not along the axis, they are in between the axis. They look exactly same, only the orientations are different. So this is dyz, this is dxy, and this is dxz. So in all these three cases, the lobes are oriented in between the axis. But if you take dx square minus y square, if you take dx square minus y square, the d orbital looks like this. That is, the lobes are oriented along the axis, not in between. Similarly, if you take dz square, if this is the z axis, then it looks like this. That is the probability density that is oriented along z axis and in the xy plane. Now carefully observe this octahedral geometry. You have a square plane and these two, right? So if you take these three lines, take a straight line from this red to blue, one straight line from this ash color to black, and then from green to purple. These three straight lines are mutually perpendicular. So we can take this one as x-axis, this one as y-axis, and this one as z-axis. This one as the x-axis, this one as the y-axis, and this one as the z-axis. So it is simply the origin. So here we have the sulfur. So the 6 fluorine atoms, they are approaching the central sulfur atom along the axis. So it becomes easier for the fluorine atom to overlap with the sp3d2 hybrid orbital if the sp3d2 hybrid orbital involves the two d orbitals who are oriented along the axis. Then it will get a greater extent of overlap. If the d orbital of the sulfur, it is also oriented along the axis and the f atom is approaching along the axis, then the overlap will be substantial. Very significant overlap, giving you stronger bond, and that's why in sp3d2 hybridization we have to carefully choose the two d orbitals which are oriented along the axis but not in between the axis. And clearly we can see it is dx square minus y square and dz square which are oriented along the axis. So when it is sp3d2 hybridization, it is the dx square minus y square and dz square, they participate, but not dxy, dyz or dxz, right? Now last topic today is the sp3d3 hybridization. So we will just proceed in the same manner. The example we are taking here is IF7, iodine heptafluoride, okay, IF7. So if you take the electronic configuration of iodine, the valence shell, it is 5s2 5p5, okay, just like the halogen. For fluorine 2s2 2p5, then comes chlorine 3s2 3p5, bromine 4s2 4p5, and iodine 5s2 5p5. So it looks like this. So clearly we cannot explain the valency covalency 7 here, so we need the excited state electronic configuration, and one of this electron will go to the 5d. You have vacant 5d here, okay. So one will come here, another will come here, and another will come here. So in the excited state, what you get, this is the 5s, then the 5p, each containing 1, and then comes the 5d, this. So all these undergo hybridization to give you sp3d3, and the corresponding geometry is pentagonal bipyramidal. You need a pentagon. At the 5 vertices there are 5 fluorine atoms, and then you need 2 perpendicular fluorine. So it looks like this. First you draw the pentagon. At the center there is iodine. Then at the 5 vertices there are 5 fluorine atoms like this. So this is the plane you have. Suppose you have the plane of the board. It is a pentagonal board like this, and then you have 2 fluorine. One is perpendicular above the board and another is below the board, perpendicular. So you have 2 fluorine like this. Now this hybridization, this is not a very common hybridization, because here the steric number you can see it is 7, that is in the surrounding of one iodine atom there are 7 fluorine atoms. So when such a huge number of atoms they are accommodated in a small space surrounding one particular atom, there is steric conjugation. What is steric conjugation? A repulsive interaction just because of scarcity of space. For example, in a very small room, if so many friends are trying to accommodate themselves, then though they are friends, but still they will repel each other. Why? Because of scarcity of space, because of deficiency of space. So just because of deficiency of space, if there is problem in accommodating some elements or atoms or molecules, then that repulsive interaction is known as a steric interaction. So here, due to steric conjugation, the molecules are not getting so much stabilization, right? And that's why this sp3d3 hybridization, where the steric number is 7, it is not a very common one. Only few molecules can show it. So that is all about our hybridization. In the first video we discussed sp3, sp2 and sp, and here we have discussed sp3d, sp3d2 and sp3d3. Later in one chapter, that is coordination chemistry, you will face another hybridization. We will discuss it there in details. Here just I am mentioning that, and that hybridization is very interesting, that is dsp2 hybridization, and the corresponding geometry is square planar. Generally this hybridization is shown by coordination complex but not compounds generally. So this dsp2 hybridization, it gives you square planar geometry, and here again this d orbital cannot be any of the d orbital out of the 5 d orbitals. So the question arises, what should be the d orbital, whether it is dxy, dyz, dxz, dx square minus y square or dz square. So let this question remain. You try to find out, or you can follow my videos when I will be discussing the coordination chemistry. Then I will clear what should be this d orbital. The only hint is, it is not any arbitrary d orbital, one particular d orbital. So here we finish for today. If you like these videos, lessons, then please do like, comment and subscribe, and click the bell icon to get the notification. Thank you.